Hello, all, and welcome to Chronicle Thread. We post our podcast every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so be on the lookout. Thanks for watching and happy writing.
All right, and welcome to the second podcast of Chronicle Thread.
I'm Shawn Stanley, and
I'm Ethan Stanley.
and we're here to discuss a story that I've written mostly. It still has some things that need to be better on it, but it's a fantastic story. I love the story. Every time I look into it, I go, wow, what a cool story this is. It's called Lake Chronicles, and the first of the trilogy is called Duality. So I thought maybe this podcast we could introduce the characters, and Ethan and I can kind of flush them out a little bit. The protagonist, his name's Ethan, and so you'll find that in my stories that I use some of my children's names in the story.
You started writing this how long ago?
Oh, it was, well, really when my boys were small. How it got started was
Besides the bedtime stories that
yeah,
you came up with in your head that turned into this. I mean, like when you started writing these,
oh, it was probably 10 years ago when I started.
when they were still called the Evil Evils and the Awful Apples and the Ippy Skippy
and the
Bugs.
Ippy Skippies. So my kids wanted me to tell them a bedtime story, and I asked them, well, what do they want me to tell them a story about? And they said bugs. So we started this story about these bugs in this lake, and how these ventures with Ethan and Reese and Rhett interacted with these bugs and the adventures they had, and it just kept getting larger and larger each night. And then when I thought, maybe I should write these down, I started thinking, and my mind just expanded on all of this, and I went, wow, this could be a really, really cool story, far outreaching, like a children's type story or book, or some type of children's make believe.
Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes you have an idea for something, but as soon as you start writing it, it explodes in your head, and you're like, freak.
Yeah, if any of you have been authors of stories, you'll understand that it's you can run scenarios over your head over and over and over again, and all of a sudden something will go click, and you're like, wow, that would make a really good story in that scene.
And then you write it down, show it to your friends, and they're like, "This is garbage." And you're like, "Oh, all right, let's go back to the drawing board."
or you just saw it in your head a different way, and you didn't describe it in that way, and other people saw it differently. So you want to get their ideas, and so thus this podcast kind of help us flush things out, give you an idea of what's behind the scenes.
But back to the characters.
Yes. So the main character, Ethan, he is a kind of a boy who is lost a little bit and doesn't understand his kind of spot in life. His mom and dad.
Not like me at all.
No. None of the names of the characters match any of the characteristics of my children. They're totally different. So Ethan had some type of accident when he was young, and his lungs are damaged. And so whenever he tries to excel at something, or be aggressive at something, his lungs can't keep up, and they kind of freeze and lock up, and it causes these big attacks, kind of like an asthma attack. And so his parents have been very protective of him. But the story starts off with Ethan outside on his wood plank swing, and he is holding a baseball glove and 2 tickets to a baseball game that his dad was going to take him to, but that night his dad didn't come home.
Well, or we can go over the first chapter however we want, but how do we? We're talking about the characters here.
Correct. So Ethan is the protagonist. He has a hero's journey that I want to start, where he doesn't think a lot about himself. He's kind of very humble, doesn't think he can accomplish much. At the end of the story, obviously he's going to save everything, and
Yeah. He's gonna grow. He's gonna be able.
So this thing about his lungs being damaged, I thought that would be a good weakness that he has to overcome. But what do you think? What are there other weaknesses that he should have?
It's not a weakness that he had any control over. It's something he was born with. Something and that's a story in and of its own, to overcome a weakness that you have no control over. Obviously, it's more interesting when you have a conflict that it was of their own doing.
Right.
But not every story has to have everything that's the most interesting.
But that would be kind of cool, though, if it was something of his own doing.
When he was 3 years old, he fell off a slide and
or not an accident,
lungs?
but maybe he did something he shouldn't. He knew he shouldn't.
He played a little too dangerously in science class, 6th grade.
I know. Maybe it's not his lungs. Maybe it's something else. But a weakness. I like the idea of maybe something he caused that will just kind of dog him all the way through.
And so it's a bit of some guilt at some points when he's failing, because it's not just, oh man, this thing's getting in the way. It's, if I didn't do that stupid thing, right, I would be fine right now.
And at the end of his hero's journey, it's really up front, and he just has to overcome it in spite of it being there.
It's possible to make that, but I don't know. I feel like if it was his fault, but we want to have it happen before the first chapter, then you have to go into a lot of backstory.
Right, and we don't have. That's one thing I don't want to do. I don't want to. There's a lot of backstory to this story that the reader will never hear about. The Ethan's father is a coal miner, and so how he became a coal miner.
You don't need it.
Right. Anyway, so Ethan, I like the idea of maybe a weakness that he has caused himself. Now, the fear that Ethan has, or the thing that he wants the most, is his father to be proud of him. Yeah. Because his younger brother, Rhett, he gets all the praise. He's able to excel in sports and all these picnic races and all these things, and his father always slaps him on the back and gives him the good attaboys and stuff. And then Rhett kind of walks by and puffs out his chest at Reese, kind of just showing I'm better than you. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So he puffs out his chest at Ethan, showing that I'm better than you because you can't do this. So he has a little bit of a pride issue. Rhett does, and growing up, there always this kind of conflict with Reese and Ethan. Rhett and Ethan, because Ethan's the oldest, and he's a little more commonsensical about things. Is that a word? Commonsensical. Has more common sense about things, and calm, where Rhett is more flamboyant and kind of off the cuff type of solutions and knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah, more instinctual.
Yep.
Things. Not really thinking things through, but jumps the gun on things and like.
Right. So there's that conflict with them now. The weakness that Rhett has is this inner conflict that he thinks he should be kind of the ruler or the leader of the two, and he never likes the fact that Ethan has better ideas or comes up with better solutions than he does, even though there's no one really around to state that. But I don't know. What do you think? Is that enough of a conflict, or what kind of weaknesses?
It's a real brotherly sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
Until the adventure hits, it can't, or it shouldn't get too much more than that. I think too much more than that.
The beginning.
Yeah, the beginning, of course.
Yeah. It continues to grow throughout the story. This rivalry.
But if you let it get too bad of like Rhett sabotaging him at a baseball game, or like Rhett becomes violent, like then it veers towards another story.
Yeah, I at the beginning, nothing like that happens. So there's this rivalry between Ethan and Rhett. Now the youngest brother, Reese. There is a bond that I like that develops between Ethan and Reese. Reese being
The youngest.
the youngest
boy.
and you could tell that Reese looks up to Ethan, and he's more of that calm nature, different than what Rhett is. And so Rhett kind of is, a third wheel type of thing. So Ethan and Reese have this common bond, and Rhett does not. And he has this want or desire to have them look up to him. He really wants that. Um, Now, the problem I have with Reese is I like the character. I really don't know what to do with him as the story goes along.
Yeah, currently we have him locked out for the whole story, right?
Yeah, so
He's
after
locked out like chapter 3. He's
no, about it lasts about till chapter 12, 13, and then
wait, what?
yeah,
Oh, there must be a rewrite I don't know about.
you don't get to the lake until chapter 15.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because there's that huge beginning of them
Having to escape,
running away from the hometown and the train and the cops.
Oh my goodness!
And
it's such a cool story.
I forgot there's so much that happens before they even get to the lake.
Yeah, and there's a tornado. There's crooked cops and the villain. We haven't got to him yet.
So then, how many chapters is the lake section?
The lake section goes on.
That goes on to the end,
about 15, 20 chapters.
Oh, so it's not even as long as I thought. So I guess Reese he's indisposed for half the book.
Right. I don't know.
As far as I know, he just gets frozen, right? He's just like poof, and he's.
And the only reason I did that is because you
have
know what to do.
You have no idea what to do. Well,
so how do I incorporate him, or do I incorporate him?
Well, I guess that's the purpose of this podcast, right? To try to get other people's opinions. So, explain the basis of the story. Don't go along chapter by chapter, but what's on the back of the book?
So, the back of the book is, I wrote that a long time ago. It is showing.
I mean, if it's a section from the book, it's fine.
Yeah, it is a section from the book.
Oh, okay.
So it is Rhett having bloodshot eyes, and he's walking out of this cabin, and the moon is high in the sky. There's the dead pines are like beckoning him to come closer. He goes over a hill into where Lost Lake is, and he goes into the water up to about chest deep, and he starts breathing erratically. This bright light hits, and he's gone. That is on the back of the book of Lost Lake.
All right. Well, I guess if we're asking for audience opinion, ages might also be important to note.
Yes. So in my mind, Ethan is about 15, 16. Okay. Rhett is 12, 13. And Reese is 8 or 9.
He's 8 or 9, yeah. So, premise, what would have been on the back of the book if you wrote it 10 years ago, when there wasn't a thing to put a section for the book on the back of the book anymore? It was an actual summary on the back of the book. What would have been written there?
Something about the mysteries of Lost Lake, where history has where people have gone into the lake and never been heard again. Just they disappear, and therefore it got the name Lost Lake. In the book, I do a short section on the Indians that used to live in that area, calling it Lost Lake because it, people would go into the lake and never come back.
Not a ghost story.
No.
Just to put that out there. So, what I'm wanting you to say is, well, obviously there's something very peculiar about Lost Lake. There are these creatures that live inside the lake, underneath the waves. There's a current war that's going on between two factions, two sides of these creatures. They both have different abilities and different aspects, but they have the same root ancestral creature. And Ethan, Rhett's, and Reese's uncle live nearby. This is set during the 1930s, Great Depression, 1933, I believe.
Yep.
1933, Great Depression. They go to live with their uncle. Because of aforementioned, father never comes home, and problems arise. Things that happen, exciting things with the train, cops, strange,
escapes, betrayals,
unknown magics, a
Yeah.
tornado, other things.
So
But
there's
they
certain
get
things,
sucked into this lake.
Yeah.
Ethan
they
and
get
Rhett
sucked
do.
into the story. They don't have a choice. Everything, all the elements in the story just drive them, thrust them into this adventure. They really don't have a choice.
They're kind of just flee for their lives into it, really.
Yeah, and everything's just pushing them towards this. So they find out that the uncle has some ties with it. He knows about what goes on in Lost Lake and is aware of things. And they revealed this to Reese after Rhett has an encounter with a creature, and he's sick, and they don't know what to do. And that's when the uncle says, "Hey, I have some things to tell you," and they reveal everything about what's going on and how the uncle's involved and how Ethan's father was involved as well.
Yeah.
And so it's a big reveal at that point. But yeah, that's kind of a summary of what's going on.
Yeah,
and the thing is this war isn't just between these bugs. One side is trying to protect the other side from
leaving it. It's
from leaving the lake. And once
to
they
keep
leave
them
the lake,
encaged.
once they reach their goal of collecting these things they're finding that they brought with them, they're
gonna unleash it upon the world, right?
Yeah, and in the book it explains it pretty well. So right now it kind of sounds like, oh, these bugs, they're gonna come out and they're gonna take over the world. But it actually explains how. And if you look into Encyclopedia or Google, there's like 230 million insects for every
to clarify the readers, we've just said creature this whole time. But bugs, yes, it is.
Yeah, so if you look at them, they're more like an insect type thing, larger than normal.
I mean, we're talking what, size of your thumb?
No, a little bit bigger. I'm thinking maybe 6 to 8 inches.
Half a pencil?
Yeah, half a pencil. That's a good description. About a half a pencil.
A lot bigger than
half-used pencil.
It's a lot bigger than I thought previously.
I thought but they're not creatures that you would find here. They're not. And the whole story of how they get here is different as well. And they reveal that as also in the story. But getting back to the characters.
Yeah. So. Rhett and Ethan get sucked into the Lost Lake, and at the current moment, how it's written, Reese is stuck on the outside.
Reese is stuck on the outside. Now
he just doesn't come into play because he's literally like frozen in time.
Yep. So Rhett ends up having there's a betrayal happen and causes this thing to happen to the uncle and Reese and the aunts, and basically they're frozen.
But so that's how he's basically just left out for the whole story until
they come back at the end. And the reason I did that is because I didn't know how to incorporate him. There's a story, this rivalry between Ethan and Rhett kept going. They're going to have this encounter. There's going to be that conflict where there wasn't any conflict with Reese. So there wasn't anything to drive that. And so I didn't know what to do, so I left him out. In the early part of the story, I wanted that bond between Reese and Ethan to kind of carry through, and why Rhett would be jealous of that.
But the nature of the book and the things that will happen, having an 8 or 9-year-old kind of slows things down, right?
Yeah, so
like on their side where they go, it's like
one thing that could be interesting is with Rhett, this rivalry building, and this betrayal that happens. Maybe he gets to a point where he tries to harm Reese, or he does, or captures him or something, causing Ethan to say, "No, that's not going to happen," and then that drives him to, I'm going to do this no matter what. I'm going to save him. I'm going to get to him, and I'm going to save him. But right now, how I have it is there is another character that Ethan meets in Montana when they get there to the uncle's house, and they start in Kansas. They take this train up to Montana, and where the uncle lives, and they meet in that town. Ethan meets this girl named Jessie.
Oh yeah, okay, Jessie. She's another main side character.
Right, and she is an awesome character.
She's a tomboy, knife throwing cowgirl.
Yeah, and she just has this persona about her that no one messes with her because she'll beat you up. She's become expert in throwing knives. She's learned this skill from cowboys that come through, that drive cattle, and they just come through for a short time and then they're gone. And so she just learns these trades and how to be tough and how to just keep going. But what happened is her and her father at one time when she was younger were at Lost Lake, and her father disappears. Well, they were fishing, and she was cleaning the fish when this happened, and she tried to find her dad and couldn't find her. And then she comes walking in town. I mean, her dress is all kind of ripped, and she's muddy, and she's still got blood on her hand, even though it's fish blood. And they're going, my dad's gone, and the whole town can't find him, and they just blame her. Yeah. So she doesn't have a father, so she goes to live with her uncle, her father's brother, and his alcoholic wife, and the whole town doesn't like Jessie because they blame her for her father's death. They can't prove it, but they just think that's what...
It's that small town mindset.
And so they put her in the basement of this telegraph office where she works, basically to put her away out of everyone's sight and everything. She works with a bunch of men, and they always make jokes about her because she's a girl, and this is a kind of a man's job. So she really has a lot going against her. The only thing that keeps her going is the fact that she wants to find out what happened to her dad. That's why she learns these skills. That's why she learns to be very tough and closed off and not very outgoing. And so she meets Ethan, and they kind of have a rocky beginning. But what kind of helps them gel is there's this other boy in the town who likes her. He's this big bully guy, and she really doesn't want anything to do with him. And his name's Nate.
Oh yeah, that's what his name was.
And so while Ethan is trying to take her to go get a sarsaparilla in town, Nate comes over and sees them walking together.
Well, either way, back on Jessie.
Oh yeah,
that's what we wanted to focus on.
But so this is kind of what gels Ethan and Jessie together, is this conflict between Nate and Jessie, and Ethan trying to be kind of a chivalry type guy doesn't work out so well. But this is where Jessie shows her expert in throwing knives, and they kind of are able to escape that situation. In doing so, Ethan uses a charm that his father gave him, and that kind of another story.
A charm?
But, yeah.
Like a lucky charm?
We're
talking like a magic charm.
Yes.
Like a spell?
It's not magic. It's powered. Put it that way. But it's not something you spell on, but it's powered, and it has a lot of science into it. But Ethan doesn't really know how to use it. He doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't remember this. This is new to me.
So,
well, either way, keep going. You have to explain it to me.
Because of this, Ethan's uncle finds out that he used this, and is really upset because he says, now that you've used it, they know you have it, and they're going to come try to get it.
Oh, you mean the thing
The necklace.
I didn't know that was called a charm. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about like a charm spell. Like
No.
he
Ethan,
hypnotized her in a way or something. I was like, what? That's new.
all I wanted
no.
this. I didn't want this to be a magic thing. It's science. It's something to do based on real things, not make believe fantasy land. So
But
that's where Ethan and Jesse comes in. Now Jesse has befriended Ethan's uncle because they kind of know what she's gone through, and they are the only ones in the town that kind of treat her nice. So she spends a lot of time over at their home, and she's the one that gets the telegram from Ethan's father and mother saying that they're not coming, and that
that just the boys are coming.
yeah, just the boys, and so because of the way the telegram is written, the uncle knows that something bad's happened, and it's just the boys are trying to escape.
Yeah, but the conflict. I mean, you were trying to talk to me about this earlier today about Jessie and a question that you had about her character after the story.
Yeah, so her main driving force is finding what happened to her dad,
which gets resolved throughout the story. But you were wondering, after that, her arc is kind of complete.
Yeah.
And what to do with her afterwards.
And do we throw that resolve out the window and cause everything to go bad, or do we use that resolve to make everything stronger? I don't know. I don't really know. The dad right now, his character is changed because
it gets resolved.
Yeah.
But question is what to do when a character's arc is complete, but you're planning on being a trilogy.
Yeah.
Does she skip town? Does she decide I've had enough of this, or does she decide to stick around, stick with Ethan for as long as?
I mean, the other thing is how to resolve this is the town, how they look at her.
Hey,
that
how do we change?
How do we get that so the town knows? Wow, we've really done her wrong, and we got to fix it. And she's really a hero, not this villain.
Well, then we got to figure out. Well, the things in the Lost Lake aren't going to become public, right? That's staying secret.
Correct.
Like, the general populace aren't going to know. So, just having him turn up wouldn't really explain things. So we got to figure out some other way to. Well, I mean, how else do you make a hero out of somebody? Is to make them, to show them. I'm just spitballing. Make them, or show them doing an act of heroism in the public.
Sacrificing something.
Or just doing something heroic, saving the town, doing whatever. Something bad is happening. They see her working for the good, trying to help people. That would change their outlook in a dramatic way. But like, I don't know. It's kind of hard because in order to change their mind, you have to show them something.
She has to bring her dad home.
I mean, that would raise lots of questions, but that would absolve her from anything, definitely.
Bringing him home, showing everyone that she never gave up on him, and everyone else did, and they were ready just to shove her away. That would be kind of cool. That would help her whole journey, because before that wouldn't be resolved, and that has to be resolved. She has to have the town look at her differently.
I mean,
she's an awesome character, and she's been dealt a terrible
honestly hand. That it doesn't have to be resolved in this book. That could be the thing that keeps her going for the second book. Is the town still hates her after everything's been done?
Yeah,
This is a trilogy.
Yeah.
Sure, her arc doesn't have to end.
Well, something she has to accomplish something in,
She
in
does.
the book.
Her father, that whole bit gets resolved. That gets accomplished.
Yeah, that's true. She
So
could do something else with the town in this second book.
Because I'm
third
assuming second or third book, it's quite possible that things stop being secret.
That's true.
And if the town saw that she wasn't, that if something comes out and attacks the town or whatever, and they see her doing her knife tricks and sticking things in the eyes and,
doing battle with it.
Doing battle, like, that would impress some people.
Yeah.
That would change their mind.
And they would see, wow, there was something to this Lost Lake stuff. Yeah. People disappearing and things.
That would...
Okay, I like that.
That's possible.
So I'm going to play around with that in my mind. There's another character that is very...
If we kept Reese out of the story being locked in time or whatever, second book, there could be some adverse effects. From being stuck in time for how many days? Just frozen? Like, you could have some problems. I'm not talking about, like...
Physical problems? Mental?
Well, I'm not sure. It could be mental. Time could be weird for you. He might get some time powers that only he has. Like, he's able to be in two places at once or something. Like, he can split off and you can like rapidly change his position if in like alternate timeline he did. Like, time could just be screwed up for him. That would also that would have to be the same for his uncle though.
Yeah, and the aunt.
They would, unless the charm that his uncle has somehow did something to protect. I don't know, but that might just be. If I was reading it, I would like it to be consistent and say it happens for all three of them.
Right. Now the uncle is older. He's got a beard. He's kind of a farmer guy, wears overalls and stuff. And the aunt is an interesting character. She always wears these.
She wears a veil, right?
Yeah, she wears large brimmed hats and a veil covering half her face all the time. I mean, she doesn't go outside without that. And there's a reason for it, but everyone just sees her half her face covered in these large hats when she's outside. And she's a very motherly type person, and they have an interesting bond with Ethan. Ethan is the one that they are most concerned about. Reese and Rhett, they care about him, but Ethan has a particular spot with them that they really want to protect.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember now. I remember what's up with him.
And so we have all these good characters. Now the bad character, the villain character. You have the name actually is our next door neighbor, Don Tillman, and he's the villain. He is the owner of the coal mine.
I guess he'd be the basic villain behind everything, huh? I mean, there's a bunch of main baddies,
right? But in the human world, he's the main bad guy. So I mean, he's a very powerful, wealthy man in town. He owns this coal mine and things. He basically has the whole town on payroll, basically. So really, he runs things, and the police will do what he wants them to do.
He's kind of the owner of the town without being the mayor.
Right. And so, he wanted to get something done, he'll bribe and get people to do things for him. So even the cops aren't really to be trusted. But everyone kind of knows this, but they really don't expect it to be really bad. But they just kind of know that
it's not like he ransacks every shop.
Right.
He business is good. He keeps things running, but don't get on his bad side.
So he, at the beginning, wants to take the farm of Ethan's father and mom. And that is where this whole thing comes in, where the kids need to escape. And he is a pretty, just a rough character. doesn't shave a lot, so he's got this kind of scratchy beard all the time. He smokes cigars and drinks coffee. Has terrible breath. His teeth are stained. But he always wears a white suit and a white fedora hat.
It was always white.
Yeah. And he had people drive him. He's got enough money where he has chauffeurs and stuff. And this is the Great Depression. And you think there's only those that are wealthy, and everyone else doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
And Don Tillman still has the wealth, and people flock to him. That's why he has so much power, is because everyone needs money, and he provides it, and people do what he wants. So he will play an integral part in the second book as well. But the first book, I guess it's good to say right here that he's just this awful guy.
I mean, he has an integral part in the first book.
Oh yeah,
he's mostly behind the scenes doing things, but he's present throughout the entire book.
At the beginning of the book, he's a very important part of the story.
And then he becomes more of a behind the scenes, pulling the strings.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's something that is keeping him going, because there's a promise made to him of more wealth if he accomplishes a task. Mm-hmm. Part of that task is getting the land, and also kind of doing away with Ethan, Rhett, and Reese. So there's the characters: Ethan, Rhett, and Reese. The aunt, uncle, Reese, Ethan's mother and father, Jesse, Don Tillman, and Nate Carter. I think that's his last name in the book.
Nate.
He was just this big, bully country redneck.
Am I thinking of something else when I think Nathan Steed?
Oh, Steed. Sorry.
No, I'm thinking of Work in the Glory.
Oh,
totally different character.
Yeah. Maybe it's Nate. Anyway. So there's the characters. I really like how they are, but they could be better. They could be, and that's what I really want. I want interesting characters in the story where the reader just kind of interacts with them and joins them on this adventure, and they want to know what happens next with these characters, and that's what I want to do. I really want to kind of go over chapter 1 so they can kind of understand.
I mean, sure.
So just to kind of get you excited about the story, so now you know the characters. Chapter 1.
But remember to keep it at chapter 1 and not chapter 1 through 15.
Yeah, it's hard because I get so excited about it. So chapter 1 starts off with Ethan on his wood plank swing, mourning his father's death in the coal mine that happened 3 days earlier. He could tell there's a storm coming. The thunder's rolling, the wind's picking up, and but he really doesn't care. He's got his baseball glove that he would play catch with his father, and the baseball tickets, and so he has this little ceremony type thing where it's a really touching moment of him just trying to get closure of his father passing, and him not ever going to get that attaboy, I'm proud of you, son moment.
Never gonna get that again.
Right. The storm comes up really quick, and there are some things that happen. I mean, a gust of wind. He loses his balance on the swing. He falls off, hits his head on the tree root. And when he opens his eyes, everything's dark. And he notices that there's a kind of an oily, dank smell, and he feels that there's these rock walls behind him, and he sees approaching what looks like dancing lights, and then he realizes, oh, those are men's headlamps, and they're joking, and they're carrying pickaxes and things, and all of a sudden Ethan hears the voice of his father, and he realizes not only where he is, but when he is. He's 3 days early in the mine with his father, seeing all this happen. And his father comes, they get to this wall, and he tells the men, looks at the work order. He says, "Yeah, this is the place." He sees the marker on the wall. We have to expand this cavern another 30 feet to hopefully get to more coal.
And I believe Ethan is unable to interact with
Correct.
anything.
No one sees Ethan. Ethan is just an observer at this point.
I think he tries speaking to them or touching them, and he's to no effect.
He can't really move close to them. He can't even really get to a point where he could get to try to touch them. I mean, he's far off.
Oh, okay.
The thing that's dangerous about what they're doing is they're 300 feet underground, and this is a part where they have this underground river that you could hear on the other side of this cavern going right behind this wall. And they call the river Medusa because they said if anybody had the unlucky time to see her, they would be dead. Because
it's an underground river. If it broke open, it would flood everything.
Flood everything, and you're dead. Yeah. So it was very, I say it bordered on crazy, suicidal being a coal miner that far underground using explosives with their underground river close by. I mean, it was very dangerous. Anyway, so the workers are kind of nervous about this, and Ethan's father, who is the head of the shot fire crew, the shot fire crew is the ones that explode the cave, make it bigger. And he says, I was told that the new bracing can withstand twice the weight and the explosive power. They're going to be fine. We're going to be okay. But they always recheck all the bracing all the time before they do any type of explosive. And so Ethan's dad, he starts preparing the dynamite, which is nitroglycerin mixed with mud. He starts packing these paper tubes, and he realizes that the long copper wire that they usually use to
the plunger
and to detonate,
classic cartoon.
So all he has is fuse, and the fuses aren't as long as they would want either. So he's like, why would they give me this and not what I'm supposed to have? And then the other men that were looking at the braces says, hey boss, these braces are almost cut all the way through. And so he runs over to find out what's going on, and he sees every brace has a clean cut diagonal almost all the way through. And then he looks down and sees a copper wire close to the ground. He digs down, and there's a bundle of dynamite there. He pulls out that copper wire, but it's attached to another bundle of dynamite on the other side of the cavern, and he realizes at that point they're done. Someone is sabotaging them. And he tells everyone to get down. He tries to cover the box of dynamite. The other bundle of dynamite explodes. The braces fall. There's a big cave-in. And so everything's dark. And Ethan's just seeing this going, oh my goodness. He realizes that what he was told, there was an accident in the coal mine, was no accident. That they were meant to be at this point. And they were sabotaged, and they were murdered. Anyway, all the men are just kind of hysterical at this point and panicked and everything. And Ethan's father is quiet. He's on his knees, and he puts his hands on the side of his head, and this necklace, this wooden charmed necklace that he wears, started glowing bright. And then all of a sudden, everything in the cavern stopped. And that is when Ethan's father looks up and he sees Ethan. And he walks over to him. And now there's still a barrier, there's an invisible barrier between them, but they're able to converse. And Ethan's father takes off this wood charm. He turns the top part of the wood charm, and this piece falls off, or comes loose. And he takes out this white bone-like, it kind of looks like a wide noodle, but it's hard, and there's black etchings into this. It's kind of like a bone, but it's shining, it's glowing. And Ethan's father says, Ethan, I need to give you this. Once I do, they will know you have it. You can't let them get it. And he puts it back in the wood charm. He wraps the work order with Don Tillman's signature on it, and
All right.
he,
Yeah, I forgot about
he
that.
pushes through this invisible barrier and puts this in Ethan's hand, and he closes it in his hand, and he says, "Don't let these out of your sight. Keep them with you all time." And so, when he pulls back his arms, it's like it took a lot out of him to actually touch Ethan. Ethan takes this and puts it in his back pocket, and then all of a sudden he can see that things are kind of working backwards. Ethan's father's walking backwards kind of staggeringly until he gets back to the position he was, and then boom, time catches, everyone's moving again and screaming and everything, and all of a sudden says, "Boss, there's another bundle of dynamite on the far wall where was the underground river." He says, "Pull the wire," but before they can do that, it explodes. The whole cavern is flooded, and Ethan gets slammed up against the rock wall because of the amount of water that comes in. And he wakes up on the ground by the tree where he fell out of a swing.
In his back pocket.
Well, he's trying to figure out what happened. He looks at his hands, and his hands are smudged with coal dust. And he's just trying to process what just happened. And then he reaches close in his back pocket, and there's the work order and the wood charmed necklace. And so he's just kind of freaking out, trying to process everything that has happened, knowing what happened to his dad. And I mean, you think about a 15, 16-year-old that had this bond with the father, and finding that something like that happened. I mean, he's just trying to figure out how am I gonna tell everybody? How am I
the
am I gonna
anger
clear
and
his
the
name?
sadness and the betrayal and the regret and
Yeah.
then just the processing of
And so
that.
he goes running into the house trying to find his mom, and he sees Rhett and Reese kind of fighting on the couch over a toy, and Rhett was making fun of Reese, and Reese started crying, but Ethan runs past that and goes to the mom. His mom is looking out the window, not paying attention to anything, and Ethan said, "Mom, I need to talk this," and she's looking at it going, this can't be happening. And so Ethan finally looks out the window, and they see this cloud, and it looks just like a circular wall that's coming toward them. And she knows that those clouds, those are tornado clouds. That's what spawns tornadoes. And sure enough, in the book I say, just like God pinched the sky and draw it down, touch the ground, this tornado formed, and it was coming towards their place. That's the end of chapter 1. So, awesome story.
Yeah, I mean, you've rewritten that first chapter.
Oh, I don't know, probably 30 times. And it could always be better. But what a cool beginning to a story where you have this incredible adventure start this way, and all the conflict, all the possibilities that can come from this, and the adventure that they're going to be thrust into because of this just adds to everything. So there's so many aspects to the story that make it so awesome and great. Anyway, I could go on, but
I know you can. I've stopped you from going on and on, trying to keep you on track a little bit.
I hope this kind of gives you a little insight into Lost Lake, at least the first book, and a little bit of insight into the characters and how they're going to get introduced. But I'm so excited about the story, and I hope that you keep going to our other podcasts and joining us on this journey where we try to figure out the best way to present and write these stories.
Yeah. And make sure to, I don't know, comment on your thoughts, your ideas, anything you would like to see happen, or you think would, or you would enjoy as a reader, to see or to have explained. I mean, I'm trying to not have my dad spoil everything about this, because I know he would love to, and just, read the book to you. But
even though it's just, I can explain the book to them, I think that the reader would still enjoy reading it. And getting excited about the first chapters, just kind of baiting everybody to go, wow, what comes next? So I don't want to spoil it for anybody either, but I do want them to get excited about it, and I want you to give us some insights of, as a reader, I want the world to I want you to paint a picture of what everything looks like. I want to paint a picture so I can understand what Ethan and all the characters look like. Those are things that I need to know, how much detail I need to go into, because I read books before and it talks about pictures of the wallpaper and stuff that I really don't care about.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, so me and Shawn have two very different writing styles. I can detail a setting. I can I can accurately describe battle scenes and right to left movements and flourishes and
blades of grass
and things like that. But I guess when it comes to the character part, that's when I have a little bit of trouble. Whereas you're all about character and you don't care about the setting, or not that you don't care about the setting, but you don't describe it. It's not a thing that you go into too much detail.
Because I don't want the reader to get lost in that detail. I want the reader to get lost in the character and the story. But at the same time, you need to know what the character looks like. You need to know you need to know what that world looks like enough so
your brain can completely rest.
My whole
I go a little too much and I don't trust the reader enough, and I try to make sure you understand everything that's going on.
My goal is that you forget that you're reading, and
that is the best.
You're just living the story as it's unfolding.
That should be standard.
Yeah,
because if people remember that they're reading, then it becomes a distraction almost.
Yep.
But
so my goal with the story is that you always want to go to the next chapter. When that chapter ends, you can't close the book. It's got to be, I got to go on. And I try to make sure at the end of each chapter is just that, going, what happens next? So in the chapter 1, the tornado, it's coming.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen with that? So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed.
I think that's enough for this podcast.
Yep. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like
comment, subscribe, and
all that good stuff. We would love to hear from you and hear your comments, and hopefully you'll enjoy this as much as we do.
And we will listen to you in the next pod. I don't know how to read an outro. I don't know. We'll see you next time.
Yep.
We're still figuring this out. Yeah. Good night. Sleep tight.